and speak since Shabbos. The Olam's back here with the ganze Frischkeit. I just wanted to say one akuda. HaRav says this. It's not my touch. It says on the pasuk, "V'ish es kadoshav lo yiyu, ish es sheyitin lakayin lo yiyah." HaRav says that the person, his whole life, he's trying to make parnasa and put away money and get to know friends, people. He says, what happens? He goes down to the cave. The furthest they get is till the cave. Afterwards, he's alone. The only thing that he takes along with him is v'ises kedoshav lo yiyu. The heilige things that he did with his life, that's what he takes along with him. That's the only thing, not your wife, not your children, not your chaverim, not your neighbors, nothing. The only thing that a person takes along with him is this ishes kedoshav lo yiyu. Lo yiyu, that's what's going to be with you. The kedoshav. See, you have a kailul. The Olam sitting and learning basis online, live. It's unbelievable how it's not stam limud atayah. It's limud atayah be'in. Coming out with sugi, it's not stam abgalant to say you were yaitzi, you finished something. It's pashit limud atayah be'in. It's a mabaldige schus that the Olam has and continues to have. Mitzvah Shem alavai vaita. Yes, it's Eis, yes, it's Oz. To come on to this, to people that are realizing, during your life, you work. What are you working for? For when you retire, you should have money. Weiter. When you retire, weiter. We keep on working for the future. But we don't realize that the future, we don't have to put away in the Ruchnis for the future also. Right? The same way you're putting away in Gashmis for the future, you have to have in mind that what's going to be the future, which is going to be a lot more valuable for us eventually to have this Kedoshav. Which is the biggest Kedoshav, and the giving tzedakah, whatever it is, chesed, ma'asim tovim, mitzvahs. Realize with the chashivas adava that you have investment. You're putting investment. That's what life's all about. So now today we're starting the CHAZARA. I'm sure you already came upon what the Hagdama is, but we spoke about Shia. Shia was in a way leichter than Chazara. Gufur Tumah works for Shia. It's machlokes in the Mishnah. Gufur Tumah works for Chazara. Any type of heker. So what is Chazara? What is the Issa Chazara? What's happening by Chazara? So we understand that Shia means it was left on the pot, it was left on the fire before Shabbos. So if it was Machab and the Soy, Mikra Adin, we spoke about many times, you don't need a blach. Good. Look at Chila, not look at Chila. Yirei Shemayim should have a blach even if it's after Machab and the Soy. But Mikra Adin, it's Mutter Gama, the Ramah said, Nagul Lahakal, once I had a blach before Shabbos, no problem. Chazara is something that you took it off. Let's divide the go. We'll talk about, maybe we'll get to the end of the shit, but Pashtus, you took it off on Shabbos, your child wants cholent, comes on Friday night, he wants cholent. If you want cholent, it's a cold Friday night, and you decided you want cholent Friday night from the blech. You took it off and you put it back on. So that's Chazara. You're returning it on Shabbos. The shaila is not only that, we're going to get to something maybe you never heard about, Chazara Erev Shabbos. You're now going to be machzor your pat even on Friday. You heard about the CHAZARA? Mefurish Taisus. Taisus in the beginning of the parak, of Parakira, the bottom Taisus in the Amid, first Amid, and Amid Beis over there discusses about Issa Chazara and Erev Shabbos. Many people think where does it come from? It's Mefurish Taisus. We're not going to get into that today. But Akapanim, and it's the Geil Halacha. Putting something back on Erev Shabbos also is. We'll speak about that a different time, Mitzvah. But now we're discussing, you take something off on Shabbos, and now you're returning it on Shabbos. So now we need Dinei Chazara, which we'll get to, Mitzvah. But what is this Chazara? What is the Issa Chazara? So it's machlokes in the Rishonim, which blends down to machlokes in the Achronim. If Chazara, the Issa is, Rashi, right away in the Sugya says, Mechzikim Avashal. Chazara is Mechzikim Avashal. It looks like you're cooking. Okay, that's this Issa Chazara, that Mechzikim Avashal is already a problem. Now, what does that mean, Mechzikim Avashal? If you put a rack on the oven, you tell me there's a problem, Mechzikim Avashal? Don't say it's such a problem, right? No problem, Mexican mavashal. Why? Because it has to be food. So food, even though the person can't see, but we gave this Issa Mexican mavashal, which we'll explain. The Benatan in Sefer Yasha. Yeah. The Benatan in Sefer Yasha explains and says that this is Shemi Yechata. And this is what we discussed the whole time throughout Shia, that was this, Shemi Yechata. What does it mean, Shemi Yechata? You might go ahead and stir the coals. Question. If a person is dealing with stirring the coals, if that's what we're worried about, so by Shia, we told you everything works. There's no problem. Once you go for cotton, no problem, Michlal. Why by Chazara are we more makbid than by Shia if it's the same problem with Shemi Yechata? The Achrayim have a discussion about this. Why there should be a problem of Shemi Yechata more by Chazara than by Shia. But now let's just get to the Ikka time of Mexican Mavashal. What does it mean, Mexican Mavashal? It looks like you're cooking. What is that? Pashtus, as far as you would think, it's Gzeiras Harayim. Other people see what you're doing, and they're going to be thinking that you're cooking on Shabbos. You're putting a pot of soup, not a soup, you're putting a pot of cholent on the crack pot on Shabbos. It looks like you're cooking. Therefore, Chazal told you that don't do Chazara on Shabbos. Now, it doesn't have to mean, even if no one's there, you don't have a heta. Because we're always chayshish, even if no one's there, Gzeiras Harayim, otu she'einam rayim. But the Rashash is of Mexican Mavashal. Another tzad to say is that people, you yourself, even though now it's cooked, but maybe a different time, you might go ahead and take something literally and put it on. Once I see that I return things on Shabbos, so maybe I'll go ahead and put the thing on Shabbos, even if it's not cooked. You're going to go, you're not going to chap the difference, and you're going to put things that aren't cooked on Shabbos also. So those are the two chashashos. Now, the Bach, HaRav, the Mishabur in a few places writes that the problem is Shemi Yechata. Okay? Now we're going to say Nafkaminas, they're going to come out if the problem is Mexican Mavashal or if the problem is Shemi Yechata. But they write that the problem is a Shemi Yechata. The Mishabur in Sifkat Nayin says very clear. He says that Ubeshabis Asa Mishum Shemi Yechata. That's what Mishabur writes. In Sifkat and Kuf Gimel, he says Mishum Chashash Shemi Yechata. So Mishabur says in two places in this Simon Ration Gimel that the Chashash is a Shemi Yechata. That's the Mishabur. Now, let's clear. When we're saying that the Issa is Chazara b'Shabbos, what is this Issa? Is it the Maisa putting it on? Or the fact that it's on there and you put it on when it was taken off? What do I mean to say? If I tell a guy to do Chazara b'Shabbos, so I didn't put it on, he's a guy, he doesn't have this Issa, it's not from the Zayim Mitzvah Noach, no Lefneiva, right? No Issa Bishul on Shabbos, forget, Akim Shabbos Chayav Misa. So there's no problem. So this Maisa Chazara was done beheter. Yeah? You go to a Kiddush on Shabbos, and all of a sudden you see the Goyim, they take something out Friday night, they put it right back on. They take it out by mistake, they took out the wrong food, they put it right back into the oven. Yeah, over by caterers. Yeah? So now, there was an Issa Chazara done on Shabbos. Right? But I didn't do the Issa Chazara, now it's on there. It's on. Do I have to worry and not go and not use it because there was Issa Chazara done to it? Or no, the Issa Chazara was done better because a guy did it. Let's say I didn't tell him. I'm not talking about when you told him. You didn't tell him. There's no Amila Akam involved. So you didn't tell him. So is there a problem now because of this Issa Chazara or not? Let's explain the Klal again. When I went ahead, is the Issa Chazara the Maisa Chazara, the act of putting it back on? Or no, the fact that it was put on, that's a problem. If it's the act of putting on, I didn't put it on, the guy put it on. But if it's the fact that it was put on Shabbos, then it doesn't make a difference who put it on right now. There was a pot that was put on Shabbos. This is a machlokes between the Mishnah Berurah and the Chazon Ish. Chavetz Chaim and the Chazon Ish, if it's the Ma'aseh Chazara or it's the fact that it was put on. Machlokes Mishnah Berurah and Chazon Ish. The Mishnah Berurah holds that it's mutter to tell a guy to put something on the fire on Shabbos. It's mutter. Why? Because like we're telling you, the issa is the putting on itself, and if the issa is the putting on itself, so over here the guy put it on, no problem. Chazon Ish argues, and Chazon Ish says that it's the Ma'aseh Chazara. That it's not the Ma'aseh Chazara, it's the fact that you have now a pat that was put on Shabbos, and it wasn't there originally. You took it off, and now it was put on. So Chazon Ish holds that that's awesome. So now, I'm not discussing a case where you told the guy. We're discussing, let's say the guy put it on by himself. So now, we're telling you that in the Ma'aseh Chazara, what's this issa? Let's understand. Why is Chazara worse than Shia? Why by Chazara a blach doesn't help? If you have a blach and you just return it on with the blach, doesn't work. We're going to see you have Tanayim, you have Biyadai, Daita Lachze, can be Agabe Karka, many Tanayim they have a Chazara. Why doesn't a blach work? There's a hacker. I have a hacker. Why am I going to touch the flame? Right? Just like Shia. We're not chayshish. Your food is not cooked. We tell you, Eitzah, put on a blech. Why by Chazara doesn't the blech help you? A good kasha? So, I have a meiser that's muchach. I have a blech telling me not to touch this fire. Right? I have a hacker, claw hacker to tell me not to touch the fire. So why in the world should that be worse than my Shia worked? It told me I'm not going to play with the flames. So why by Chazara am I going to play with the flames? I'll leave it, the reason of, and we said the Mishnah Berurah goes with that. Mishnah Berurah goes Shami Echata. The reason is Al Shami Echata. So why by Chazara is it worse? We all agree that by Chazara, a blach is not going to help you. Right? So why should it be worse? Now, you're thinking of Chazara, how often do you have Chazara? We're dealing with people that are a little bit older, your Bachram are married already, Baruch by now, and no one's really coming in your house and taking and putting off. It's not true. You have, let's say you're leaving your food in the oven. You left the oven on. It's Yantif, the 3-day Yantif, a lot of people left the ovens on. And you start pulling things out of the oven, and you realize, I pulled the wrong thing out of my oven. So you're going to want to put that thing back. Or your wife didn't tell you she's doing this because she was afraid what their reaction was going to be. Right? So we do have Chazara going on. It's not like something that's abstract, but it's only by a few that do this. This can happen. Right, that's also another problem, which we'll get to today, Mitzvah, hopefully. So again, why is Chazara worse? Why doesn't a blach work? And the answer is like Rabbi Herschel said. Over here, I'm putting, a hacker is not bulletproof. Right? You have a blach, it's not bulletproof that you're not gonna go ahead and play with the knob. It's just the fact that it's enough to go ahead to remind me that not to touch with it. But when I put something on the fire, I automatically play with the flames. It's automatic, you're touching the flames. When you put a pot freely on the fire, it's automatically that you're touching the flames. A reminder here, this is what I do. So now, when I have a pot on the fire, you don't just say, okay, guy's going to go ahead, play with it. So I have a hecker, that's enough. I have a blach, that's enough. When I do Chazara, when I put the pot on the fire, over there, automatically you start shifting, playing with the knob, seeing, is it good? What I just did? Right? So therefore, Chazal told us that when I'm dealing with such a Shemi Yechata, that's a stronger Shemi Yechata, and therefore, that won't be enough to go ahead and be makel for you to say a blach's enough. And therefore, you need the Tnoai Chazal. Okay, so that is a very important decide, which Rabbi Heschel, I think that's what you meant to say. And the Tyson Shabbos, from the early Achrayim, Mishnah Berurah quotes him a lot, brings down this far. So when you go ahead and put something back on the fire, so once I'm dealing with the pot, why if you put something on the flame itself will flicker, and over and under, whatever, I lost it. What's the shayla?
We're worried about putting a data on the flame That's going to lower the flame.
No, I didn't say that.
No, the question, why are we not worried about that? Eretz Yisrael weren't going to that.
I don't even know what type of exact what that was. Oh, you mean Havara like?
Yeah,
Kibui.
Yeah.
Doesn't. First of all, doesn't happen. It doesn't go around in the flame.
No, you may be touching the old style of cures, so touch the gachel.
I don't think they put it around in the flame. It would burn. They had shelves also.
The gachel is underneath.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
No, it's underneath. You can't touch the gachel.
Yeah. The lavdafka went low.
There's a grill there.
You're not putting. Yeah, but over there, maybe the juice. The pat doesn't do anything. It's not doing that part. Keep it.
Why? I mean, if you do chato with a metal stick, so why can't you do a chato with a pot also?
No. Yeah, but that's not. You're not going to do that. That's not the.
Why?
Yeah.
Because I'm not covered.
Yeah. It's not obsecration. Yeah. Okay. So now let's discuss many cases of CHAZARA, and then we'll try to get back to CHAZARA on Shabbos. Oh, so therefore, since you're putting it on. Oh, yeah, they can't hear the discussions. Okay, so since we're going ahead and putting it on for the first time, not the first time, but since you're going ahead and putting it on, you're always going to play with the fire, and therefore Chazal said it's not enough that I will go ahead and have a blech. We need to have Tanoy Chazar. What does Tanoy Chazar do? Let's just say the Tanoy Chazar. You have to keep it in your hand. So it says that I never really took it off the fire. It's not a new Messina Lekatchila. It's not a new putting on. It's Chazar, which means it's a continuation of when it was on originally on the fire. Therefore, it's not that you went ahead now and did a new Maisa of putting something on the fire. Therefore, you're not going to go ahead and be Mechatel L'Chol. So, when we're dealing with the Tanoi Chazara, what are we dealing with? It's trying to tell you that I'm not doing a new act of putting a new pot on the fire. It's an old story. It was on the fire. So I'm not going to go ahead now and play with the coals because it was on the fire already. Therefore, how the Tanoim, they told you that that's okay because I have Tanoi Chazar, and that's what hopefully we'll discuss later on. So now, when someone when someone goes ahead and has a tafshil, that's mistamik viraloi, which means we know what now. By now, we should know somewhat what tafshil is mistamik viraloi, mistamik v'yafaloi. Tafshil that it gets ruined the longer it stays on. The more it stays on, it gets ruined. Is there a chazara on that? Now, what would you say? That the guy's not going to raise the flame. It's bad for the food. But you could hear that for that moment, maybe you are going to raise the flame. So this is machlekes in the Rishonim. If there is a problem or not. Some Rishonim, the Chedusha Iran, on the Flamet Chesam at Beis says, Afilu mitztamek v'ral loy osa. You might be mechata. Why would you be mechata? It's going to ruin the food. If you say that the pshat is Mexican mavashel, yeah, okay, it doesn't make a difference. But if you say it's shami yechata, no, maybe you're not going to ruin. The Beis Yosef paskins gam tafshel shem mitztamek v'ral loy osa. Bima Golden passes like that. Kiva HaRav, and more and foremost the Mishabura. In Sif Cotton Nun Beis, the Mishabura says even mitztamik virala. So that's a very important halacha. Mishabura tells us even mitztamik virala is also. Question: what do you mean shemi yechata? If it's Mexican mavashel, it's okay. So no one knows what's in the pot. They think that you're putting on soup, and you're really putting on challah, whatever it is, chicken. So therefore, they don't know. So Mexican mavashel, but shemi yechata, we said that the Mishabura in two places says that the problem is shemi yechata. So why would the Mishabura hold over here that it's awesome, it's tamik viraloi? And the answer is because even shemi yechata, right now, for the moment, for the time being, I might go ahead and raise the flame. The tamik viraloi can mean in 2 hours. I'm taking off this kugel in a half hour from now. So therefore, there's going to be a chashash of shema yechata even on mitztamik viraloi. By Shia, we don't have the chashash, but Chazara, we have the chashash.
Why? Once he's playing around, he might forget.
Once he's putting this thing on the fire, he's gonna play around with it and do something to it. It's such a normal thing to do that when you put something on the flame, even if it was on beforehand, but if you're putting something on the flame, you might be mechata. It's a normal thing to do. I don't care what's in the pot. Right away, you start handling with the fire.
Even if it's gar for cotton.
Even if it's gar v'katan. Therefore, you need the t'noim of chazara. But mitztamik v'rala, it's bad for it. Still, you're going to go ahead and play with the fire. That is what the Mishabura paskins. Again, the Mishabura and Sivkat and Nun Beis paskins like this. Can I bother you to pass me the coffee? Huh? I don't know if I could go.
Okay, sorry. You're fine.
I just want to get the coffee. Yeah.
Do you hear me now? I repeat all the questions that come here on the floor because we're well aware of the issue. I'm told by our CTO that I'm being heard on the Zoom platform. So I hope that's correct. You hearing me? Normally. Okay, so any question that comes up here is repeated. So everybody knows this. So the Lamaisa is that the Tais Shabbos explains that the shots you're putting it down, you're going to be, what are you going to do? You're going to be mechata.
You're going to play with the coals. This is the Yisoid for Chazara. The Yisoid for Chazara is ask your wife. Anytime she takes something off the fire and then she puts the pot back on, it's automatically that she looks at the fire. She starts dealing with the knob. So this is the Shabbos saying that's the Metzias. And because that's the Metzias, Chazara is always more Chomer than Shia, and you have to be very careful when you're taking something off the fire. I'm sorry? We can't cover, it's not going to help us because the blech is just a reminder. It's an automatic act. Subconsciously, when you put a pot on the fire, you're automatically going to turn the flame. Unless it's already original pot, and that's where T'noya Chazar are going to come in, which we'll get to when it's mutter.
I was having a problem with this is because in Hilchos Shia, we learned that you need a hacker, and a blech is a hacker. So why is Hilchos CHAZARA?
Right. So the island's having a problem that Peshel's here. How is it? Oh, someone else. Oh, yeah. It's the island's having a problem over here. That why by Shia again? I'm just going to explain it again to be clear. The island's having a problem. Why by Shia did we say you're not going to touch the flame and a blech works? It's a reminder. We're not talking about. We said this many times. We're not talking about Havayan. We're talking about someone who's making a mistake. So blech works. How come by Chazara blech doesn't work? And the answer was saying very clear is from the Tais Shabbos, because when you put something new onto the flame, it's automatic. Even this hacker that you have with the blech doesn't work because it's automatic that you play with the flames once you put a pot on the fire.
On Shabbos.
On Shabbos, obviously. Yeah.
Take off the knobs.
Oh. So the question is over here is take off the knobs. And you're not going to play with the flames. So I would call that in Hebrew terms, the Chazal call that toch petit. Something that's completely not shaykh to get to the fire anymore. So that's a very good shayla. And that might work. We'll get to that later on. I don't know today, but that might work. It means if you have no yechayles b'chlal to get to the fire. You took off the knob. Today the knob, many times, it's very easy to put the knobs back on. That's true. That's why a knob is not such a good marshal. And even if you take off the knob, Amalek Yidden for sure, they knew how to use the screwdriver, the pliers to turn it on, right? When you're missing a knob, you went upstairs to get the plier. It's mutter to do on Shabbos. I would say it's not negay because you're not allowed to do it. But mitzvah Hilchos Muksa, it's mutter, right? So we know a little bit about that in Hilchos Muksa. They would use pliers to crack nuts. You didn't need a whole nut cracker. Use a plier to crack a nut. No, Rabbi Black. No, you didn't use that.
Still today they use pliers to crack it.
Okay, so Rabbi Herschel Gestel is tiny that make a taste to be chayshish that you're going to go ahead upstairs and get a screwdriver. Okay, this to be discussed. This is going to be another discussion. But Akapanim, for right now, we just have to be magdim that this is a very, very important nakuda. That the reason why CHAZARA is mochama is because when you put the pot on the fire, you automatically start judging the fire where it is. If it's the right knob, the right flame, the right size flame, not the right size flame, and therefore you come to the problems. Now,
Rebecca, what was your question, Rebecca?
okay.
We'll get to hot plates later. We're far away from the hot plates.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. So let's first work with what we have here. When we're dealing with when we spoke about Shia, we discussed that if your blech falls off, let's say by itself, in the middle of Shabbos, that's a sugi of kut mishahovara, and we come out that it's mutter. Do you say this also by CHAZARA, l'moshe? Where we're going to come out that it's when you're going to do the hetere CHAZARA. You're going to have by the biyoda, you're going to have daite lachzar, and you're putting your chalent back on the crack pot. As we say, you're putting the chalent on the crack, and your blech fell off, slipped off. So your wife starts screaming, what's going on here? The blech slipping out. It's a little silver foil, and it slipped off. It went off with the pot, and it didn't go back on. Is there a problem? Do we say kut mishahovara works by CHAZARA just like it works by Shia? Big machlekes achrayim and machlekes ushayim. The Piskei Riyaz says that it's mutter. Pri Megadim says that it's mutter. Rav Moshe felt that it's mutter. Rav Moshe is in Chaim Chelek Dalet Siman Ayin Dalet over there in those short shuvas written to Rabbi Shimon Eider, and over there he writes that it's mutter. Now he has a different problem that even the Gemara never spoke about our blech. The Gemara was talking about it was group of Tuma and it never gets back to itself. But Be'ikar Adin, Rav Moshe held that it's mutter. But to say that it's mutter by our blech, Rav Moshe says not, and that is Rav Moshe in Ois Lamed, which can be very negay. It's good to see maybe. Or Chaim Chelek Dalet Siman Ayin Dalet, and Dine Bishul Ois Lamed.
We put on Ois Lamed. Please, page here.
If you can put that on the screen, it's good to see.
One? 181. Which ice?
Ois Lamed, Dine Bishul Ois Lamed.
Okay, page 133.
Page 133. Okay, so okay. And Moshe writes like this. The Shiloh Rabbi Eider asked him was, Le'inyan am nafal ablech b'Shabbos, and mutter lahachzer b'al odov kedin kitma v'huver. Now, Moshe answered, Mistaber she'ein lahatir b'kitma v'huver elam kain yesh oid heker l'ktima shahisa. I need somewhat of a heker, that there was once upon a time a blech over there. V'hisig apizeh l'chein b'nafal ablech ein lahatir. If the blech fell off, it's asa. See, even though we hold kitma v'hover works, but if the blech falls off, and Moshe holds that it's asa. Moshe Ayer friend, who was the guide of the Eda Charedis, Talmud of HaRav, I think, there's a sefer called Ateres Yeshua in Mara de Shmaitz over there. So he says there was once a story in the yeshiva by him, and they went ahead and the Bacham took Chalantov and the blech fell off. He said it's mutter. Why? Because that's Kitma V'over. And Moshe Feinstein says absolutely not. And Shlomo Zalman goes with this, and the Yashiv that's not the case. Why? Because you're right, Kitma V'over is mutter by CHAZARA, but when the blech falls off, I don't even see any connection to what was originally. So therefore, Moshe said that it's asa. That could be very negay. You go ahead, you take off the cholent Friday night, and you put it back on without the blech, the Moshe says it's a problem. Now, we still have to hold on because we might come up with a heter. So what should you do? No problem. The blech falls off, put it right back on. Nothing wrong. You're allowed to put a blech. We spoke about that many times. A blech's not considered muksa on Shabbos, and you put it all back the blech on, no problem. So again, you take it off and you see, and you're holding the crack pot with two hands, and your wife's trying to get the cholent out. And also, boom, the blech falls off the pot. No problem. Just go ahead and put it back on. That is halacha l'maisa. Now, here's where we have to deal with some aterim, and this is very, very useful. We have to know if we use it, but it's very, very useful to know this. You say this the Ran. The Ran on Daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis in the Daf HaRav in Divrei HaMaschil Umiyu, he says, he brings Yerushalmi that the only time CHAZARA is Aser is only if it was done on Erev Shabbos, which means you took it off on Friday and you put it back on Friday night. But if I took it off on Shabbos, no Issa CHAZARA at all. You took it off Friday night. You took out cholent, and you're putting it back on Friday 10 minutes later, hour later, mutagam. Azay state in the Ran. Why? Why should that be? The Ran says this halacha l'maisa. The Ran says that if you went ahead and you had CHAZARA on Shabbos, you took it off on Shabbos, you put it back on Shabbos, no Issa CHAZARA at all. Yeah? That is the Yisraelis dig around that we have to know about. Oh.
And you're holding the thing? You still have to hold it?
No holding. There's no Issa CHAZARA. Right. No Issa CHAZARA at all. The HaShulchan explains it. The HaShulchan is in Sif Yotes. You have it? It's good to see, but I don't know if he's hearing the. Can he put it on? I don't know if he hears me.
We have the book, the thing, I'm not sure exactly. A place that they go around there, this is sharing me.
You have Pesach. Do you hear? Are you listening? Okay. Okay, so I'll read out the HaShulchan. The HaShulchan is Sif Yotes, page 88. He says, the Yesh Oimim, the Chol Din CHAZARA she'asu chachamim einoi elo kishenot loi me'erev Shabbos v'echzir m'shechashecha. The only time that CHAZARA is aser is only if I took it off on Friday. The zeu k'mashal l'katchila b'Shabbos. So now I took it off on Friday, I'm putting it on Shabbos. It looks like you're doing something new on Shabbos. Avo kishenot loi b'Shabbos. If I took it off on Shabbos v'echzir b'Shabbos, ein zeh CHAZARA she'asu chachamim. Oh, this is not a CHAZARA that Chazal asked.
88.
The bishul or shayach bazeh, there's no bishul b'chlal. V'gam chashash chita ein kan shu yisechem bishul kol tzorcha. It's already completely cooked. V'havay kehisha. It's like a shia. V'afilu hinicha gabe karka. Even if you put it on the floor, loyin is batla ashar rishayna. There's no shia problem. There's nothing. There's no issa CHAZARA. You know what's going on here? You have to remember, you have to remind yourself of this Ran. The Ran's telling you that the whole Issa CHAZARA is only when it was taken off on Friday and put it on Shabbos. If it was taken off on Shabbos, no Issa CHAZARA at all.
The top of the left column. Move it down, whoever's doing the sharing. Top of the left column. Back to page 88.
Okay, we're not going to wait time for that. Let's move on to the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah brings down this round. Look at the Mishnah Berurah in Simulation Gimel, Sif Cotton, Samach Dalet. And Sif Cotton, Samach Hey. Two very important Sif Cottons. He tries to explain the round. Sif Cotton, Samach Dalet, and Sif Cotton, Samach Hey.
Page 77.
Okay. Sifkat Samach Daled. It says as follows: the kivon sheloi haya netila b'Shabbos nir chazarasei kepuula chadasha. The time that it's us is only because I took it off on Friday, and when I took it off on Friday, and now you're putting it on Shabbos, it looks like a new puula. But and that's like, I don't know the next word is chalam vash. Mishum hachim etzachina kaponim oidan biyadech agavna. Ki eicha de lehavi akeish ein el chazar. But the next of cotton, but agabe kai vafilu lo yadaita lachzav atam. What's the reason that it's mutter? She'akol yadu dekva amda akteiv v'kira v'nis bashal kva. Everyone knows it was on the Shabbos. Now that you took it off, everyone knows it was on already. Therefore, there's no problem of chazara done on Shabbos. So it's a massive chiddush in the halacha. The Ran's shita that there's no problem of this being done on Shabbos. So you have to know about this because many times you have to use it to tziruf lahaka. Now,
What about Benish Moshes?
if you took it off ben hashmashes, okay, we'll discuss that. 1 second. Now, so 1 second. So the machlekes in the Rishonim, many Rishonim don't go with this. We don't have to list of the Rishonim. Basically, all the Rishonim in the sugi don't work with this ran. They don't make a chilik between Shabbos and Erev Shabbos because the Issa Chazar is called when I was taken off. The wheat paskin like this ran. Let's go up to the top of the page. There Ma and Siv Beis over there. He says V'yei Shaimim, the Chol Ze Einoi. Yeah, the third line. The Chol Ze Einoi Aser Rak Shenot Le'Menakiyim B'Bayjoyim. The whole Issa Chazar is only when you took it off Friday. You didn't put it back on till at night. But if you took it from there, from Friday night, okay, so what is he passing like? We are making by our ovens.
There's only one question.
Yes.
Ron seems to be going less as far as messing to
Oh.
especially for this word, for sure.
Oh, he's asking very stark. Okay. Well, what's that?
I want the road to tie together.
Okay, fine. Okay, we're gonna ask. Abash was asking a very stark kash over here. We're gonna bring it up to the island. Yes. Yeah, 1 second. Let's see. The Ramaz telling us that Nayagim lahakal, but Taiv lahachma. Again, he quoted the Ran Shita, Ramah, that's our minig Ashkenaz. He's telling you the Ran Shita, no Issa Chazara on Shabbos. It's a major breakthrough in the whole sugya. We're going to learn the whole sugya now of Issa Chazara. The Ran knocked it out. It's only if you took it off on Friday, put it back on Friday night. No one's really doing that, right? You're holding it throughout Shkia, like either you're in shul or your wife's lighting licht. Normally, that's not going to be really happening that you went from Friday into Shabbos. So Zak the Ran, the whole limud that we're going to be doing now the next 2-3 weeks, out for lunch. No problems. No Issa Chazara. You could stay back with the Issa Shia and you put on your blech. You're just fine. We'll see even later. If we have time to get to it today, you might not even need a blech. We'll get to that. But Akapanim, he tells you that Noyeg in Lahakal. V'toiv Lahachma. So he threw us with a curveball here. Toiv Lahachma. So how do we deal with this Toiv Lahachma? Let's move on to Siv Gimel. Siv Gimel, the Irma in Siv Gimel, another page or two. They have a little further, next page. He's talking about, again, Chazar, you went too far. Oh, that's all it is? You're missing a page. No, but you skipped. You went from Mem Ches to Num Beis. So go to Shechanah then. We need the Irma. There's something wrong here. You're missing 5-6 pages in between.
Let's go there on page 1.
Sif Gimel, the Ramon Sif Gimel. Oh, okay, good. You got to the Shechanah. Good. 660. No, you're in the wrong simon. You're in Rishon Dad. If you get the Rishon Gimel. Okay, a little further up. Further, next page. Page 55, that's what it is? Makes sense, yeah, makes sense. 55, yeah. Yes, it makes sense, 55. Yeah, okay, yeah. A little further up. There you go. A little higher. Yeah, there you go. Sif right there. Sif Gimel. V'kvan is by, he's talking about Issa Chazara. Not going to go through that case. But he ends over V'kvan is by, Shanoig and Lahakal, Af im Nosnal Gabe Karka. What's he referring to? The Ramaz referring to what he just said in Sif Beis, that the minig is to be makel. Therefore, even if it was put on gabekaka, which means there's no issa chazara. The story over here was someone woke up in the morning and he saw that his pot wasn't cooked, whatever it was, issa chazara, and it was talking about on Shabbos, and he ends off, no problems. So in Sif Beis, he told you Tov L'Achma. We don't know what Tov L'Achma means. It's like a steer minay bay, Noegin L'Hakal Tov L'Achma. He tells you right here in Sif Gimel, I'm clear that it's mutter. It's a Tov L'Achma, but let's say it happened, clearly it's mutter. So there's no Issa Chazara on Shabbos. So what should we do? So if you go back to the Taz over here, another probably 2-3 pages earlier, the Taz says, why did the Ramah say Tov L'Achma? Sifkat and Yud Beis in this simon. So the Taz says, why, if Noegin L'Hakal, why Tov L'Achma? So the Taz says, like we really were masbeh, that, okay, this is a ran, but Taisvis, a Rosh, Banim Shochem Achreim. Anyone that follows Taisis and the Rosh said, Lo Tzvi Lekein. So the Ramah came up with a Shita of a Shita Saran, but that's really a Das Yochid. And therefore, we don't go just with this Das Yochid. The Mishnah Berurah in Sifkat and Samach Zayin, we saw Sifkat and Samach Dal and Sifkat and Samach Hey, but 2-3 Sifkatans after that, the Mishnah Berurah says, the Tov L'Achma,
Page back to 77.
Ki Harba Paiskim Chalkan Alaran. Yeah? And therefore, don't just go ahead and be Samach on the Ran. So therefore, it's not so simple just to say, okay, throw out the whole Chazara and just have this Ran, because he's telling us that Harba Chalkan Alaran, and therefore, and you see, he goes on further, but upon him, that's what, just to make a sikum, we have one Das Yochid that said that there's no Issa Chazar on Shabbos, and everyone basically says Keneged, we don't have them quoting anyone else that goes with the Ran, but the Ramah does quote it, and we can't ignore it. Not only that, the Pri Megadim in Mishpat Tzayzav Sifkat Yud Beis, the Taisa Shabbos, in the end of Rishon and Test, he makes a kitzah of all Dinei Chashiyah Chazar Atmana. The Taisa Shabbos, the Aruch HaShulchan that we saw. You could go ahead, they feel that you could be Saimach on this Ramah. Shechanach HaRav, Chazanish, they say Royal Achma. And David Feinstein brought down in the Chuvas V'dibat Abam, Rabbi Maskowitz and Chelik Aleph, over there he says, B'makam tzarech yesh lismach al HaRav. Why am I quoting you all this? You don't have to know there's a list of many poskim about this, but I'm just coming to quote you that the minig ha'olam is to be machmer by us, obviously to hold it. But let's say your son tells you, "Oh, I forgot. I didn't have in mind, or I wasn't holding it with two hands. We'll see later how much you have to hold it. People overdo it. Lav dafki, you have to go ahead and hold it with two hands, and your wife should be the shaykh. You could do it yourself. Take out also. We'll get to that in Mitzvah. But realize that you have a ran to be saimich, and it's not a favar from the ran. They're most quoting you the ran, and we're telling you Pri Megadim v'chulu, hold that it's mutter. So therefore, you have enough to realize that if it was done, yesh mokim gadol hakol. Oh yeah, Rabbi Hershel Stam saying, lav dafki your son could go ahead and asa your challenge. He doesn't have violence to asa yours. That's a big Shachan that, if you know the Lomdus, a big Lomdus in that Kivega. Yeah, big Shachan Kivega on the Sugi. Rabbi Hershel's a good Stam Chacham. Yeah. Now to address Rabbi Hershel's question that he said before, which was a very deep question, because he's reminding us what we just said in the beginning of the share of what's the reason Issa Chazara. Is the Issa Chazara Mexican Mavashal or the Issa Chazara Shem Yichata? The Ran is working with Mexican Mavashal. So there's no Mexican Mavashal because it was on Shabbos. We said over the Aruch HaShulchan explains the Ran, Alam the Shekasha. The Aruch HaShulchan explains the Ran. What's the pshat? Because there's the Mexican Mavashal, no Mexican Mavashal because it was already on Shabbos, so no one's going to think you're cooking something new. So that's only at the time Mexican Mavashal. But now we know that the Mishnah Berurah goes with it, that the Chasar is Shem Yichata, so then we don't even have the Ran to start with. So let's knock the Ran out of the park because we don't have the head of the Ran. The whole Ran was only a Mexican Mavashal. That's a very, very good question of Hashem. I'm going to have a hard time answering it. Yeah. Okay, so the question's really sikum of the share a little bit. We're not ending it, but it's a little bit of a, from beginning to the end, what the Reisha and the Sefer. We started the share with explaining there's two reasons why Chazar is worse than Shia. But what the Iketam Chazar is. One was Shemi Yechata. You might go ahead and just play with the coals. And the other one was because of Mexican Mavashal. Mexican Mavashal means you're putting a pan on the fire. What are you doing? It looks like you're cooking. Chazal said you can't do that on Shabbos. So what did the Ran tell us why it's mutter to go ahead and put back something that was on Shabbos and re-put it back on, even though you took it off, you can put it back on Shabbos. What's the chat? Because there's no Mexican Mavashal. Everyone knows you took it off and now you're going to go ahead and put it back on. Everyone knows it was on there ready for Shabbos. No one thinks you're cooking this. Okay? But that's only in the tzad if the problem is Mexican Mavashal. But if the problem is Shemi Yechata, you're stuck. Because over here, what was the Vart in Shemi Yechata? We explained very nicely from the Tosfos Shabbos. Because you might go ahead, anytime you put something on the fire, you might go ahead and play with it. So if so, who cares if it was on by Shabbos? But right now I'm putting it back on Shabbos so that I should have the problem with Shemi Yechata. That's a very good question, Rabbi Heschel, and we're going to leave that by a question. Unless you really want to answer, I'm scared I'm going to lose the island. No, Rabbi Shlomi, you're asking to me? Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on this round, which is very important. Light the round, and I think Shlomi asked that before. Can I? Yeah, but we don't have a Bavli argument. We don't have a Mefurish Bavli argument. Normally when it's Chag is Bavli Shami, we go with the Bavli. If the stomach is a Bavli, that's not enough to say that we go connected the Bavli, that we go connected the Shami.
Take away the entire CHAZARA.
No, it's only from Friday to Shabbos. You don't see in the sugya when with what they were dealing with. They'll tell you that that's what. Yeah. So now, let's say I put it back even without a blech. Two cases which we have to discuss. Let's say your wife comes and by mistake she took off the cholent, she puts it in the refrigerator. Yeah, Friday night she takes off the cholent, puts it in the refrigerator. Shabbos day she chaps ben shlam. Or you know what, cholent's not such a good marshal. The kugel, extra kugel. I don't need this for. What do I need this for? Put it in the refrigerator. Shabbos day she starts chapping. Ben shlam. I'm having guests. I forgot. I need that kugel. She's going to go ahead and put it back in the oven right then and there. Or you know what? Put it on the crack pot, on the hot plate, right? Is that okay? There's no chazar but around on Shabbos. Is that a valid thing to do or not? Noig in the hakal, the Ramah said. B'megadim, achashulcham, mutter. Okay, she's worried. She has guests coming. She needs more kugel. It was on there Friday night. They took it off. Shabbos day, she chaps. Bit to vigal. I need to have more kugel. Puts it on. Is that okay or not? What would you say, Rabbi Godeman? No, why not? Like the ran, it's mutter. You're allowed to go ahead, put a pot that was on Friday night, take it off, put it on like a tchila on Shabbos. No problem. Okay, this is the evidence of B'shas Adchak. B'shas Adchak. Everyone agrees B'shas Adchak. I told you over, David Feinstein, Paisik Achin, says B'shas Adchak, you can be makel. Okay, so this is B'shas Adchak. So you could basically be putting your kugel and everything, no problem. Again, yeah, Heschel's right. You need a Shas Chak. This is a regular Shas Chak. Is that mutter? So I heard from Adria from Baal Hashiyur Mitzuyanim Ba'alacha. Does anyone know who that was? A Yid? Oh, Rabbi Brown and Flatbush. Yeah, you remember him? Very big time with Chacham. So he has a sefer Shiyur Mitzuyanim Ba'alacha. Adria told me that he would be noyig like a tchila. Leil Shabbos, put the food in the refrigerator. Shabbos day, boom, on the crack pot. Not what we do. I'm talking about on top of the crack pot. That's mutter. That's we have to get to. That's later on in CHAZARA. But no problem putting it on the hot plate. Hear what's going on here? Obviously, yeah. Please don't put your.
And it was cooked Friday night on the fire.
It was cooked Friday night. It was on there Friday night. Let me be clear. Don't walk away yet. Whoever's listening, please stay online. It was on the blech. It was on the hot plate Friday night. It was nisbashal. It was on the blech Friday night. He went ahead and took it off. He was afraid of, I don't know, maybe a flame or whatever it is. He did not want that thing on there all night. It would burn or that. He would take it off, put it in the refrigerator or freezer, and then go ahead and put it on Shabbos day. Why not? Have a ran, have a Ramah. Here's the Yid with Plaitis. You know him, it looks like a
But it's
Kalba.
not a Shatzachak, and he says Taiva Achmer.
Yeah, Taiva Achmer,
Why
okay.
go against the Ramah, which says Taiva Achmer?
Okay, because we said the Ramah and Sif Gimel. The Ramah and Sif Gimel made no notice of that Taiva Achmer. He fell off of that. I don't know why. It was written after Sif Beis. So, and now you're going to hackle. That was Rabbi Brown. Should we do that? Doing my research a little bit, I didn't find anyone else that was naig with such a cooler like that. And like the way the Elam screaming over here, it says Taiv Lahachmer, Taiv Lahachmer, Taiv Lahachmer. It's not a Shasat Chak. You can't make every week a Shasat Chak that you would like to go ahead and empty your hot plate and just go ahead and be saimach on this. Now, the Stimus Lashon of Primagarden, I wouldn't have time now, it's getting late, I didn't realize. The Stimus Shechanach HaRav is definitely not like this Rabbi Brown, but I'm just trying to show you how this thing is alive. This Ramah is alive. This Ran is a live Ran. We're using this for real. Definitely, you don't want to be Saimach on that Nakuda, but B'Shas Chak, you can be Saimach on it. Now, let me tell you even weiter. There's a Tashbatz. I think a Tashbatz is a Rishon, right? Or the earlier Achrenim? Is a Rishon?
Talmud and Maram.
Talmud and Maram. Okay, we have a Yadin over here, Shloimeh. The Tashbatz says that even if, listen to this Lashon, you don't have it, but I'll read it to you. Im not le mishach sheikha b'chol inye mutalach ziroi v'yesh makilin al pi ha'yushalmi afile k'she'ena grufa ktuma v'im kein ein l'salik ha'noyegen hetem menogam v'hanach lahem li'yisrael. You hear what's going on here? You should fall off your chairs. It's good we're sitting on comfortable chairs, we're not falling off. But if it would be slippery, we would go right off. The Tashbatz tells us that you don't need a blach for this. Your flame is going, you took that thing off the fire. No Tnoi Chazara, nothing. You had no das to put it on. You decided, you know what? I took it off, I had an apple cooker. I took it off the flame. I saw, 2 hours later, I want this thing hot again. No blech, no nothing. Put it right back on. The Chashulchan says, Kishehitir Aran al pi ha'yushalmi, hitir afilim nichzagdei akiyah she'eina grufa ktuma. The Chashulchan, that same Chashulchan in Sifyu Tes.
Let's put back on Sifyu Test if we can.
Pashel, you knew about this raid? This is a pachad. We think we're so worried here. The Chashulchan in Sifyu Tes says that even if it was not Gar V'Kotim, so CHAZARA, we came with the whole bomb that we started off the Shia, that it's worse than any Shia possible. It doesn't help you, blechs. It doesn't help you. You need Tanai CHAZARA, which we're going to speak about. Here we went to the Ogavish, half of the whole CHAZARA, that if it's done on Shabbos, which most of the times that's when it's done, you go attack that caterer, you scream, what do you let the guy and take it off and put it back on? They're putting it, we're the caterers mostly doing it. They go ahead by mistake, they take out a kugel from the oven, standing ovens. What's it called? The warmers, right? And there's no blach in the warmers. And they take it out. They take out 5 kugels for the Shalom Zacha. And tomorrow's a kiddush. You have twins. One was a girl, one was a boy. You make the Shalom Zacha Friday night and the kiddush Shabbos day. They take out 5 kugels. And then they go ahead and they realize, oh, not too many people showed up for Shalom Zacha. Let's put this back for the kiddush. Oh, you start screaming at them. There's no blach. There's no Tanai CHAZARA. They would take it off. You have a ran. You have a Aruch HaShulchan that goes with the ran and says you don't even need gar for kotum.
But he says, Aruch HaShulchan says,
yeah.
That is Taiva Lahachmer because that's Rak Chidah.
Okay, but we're talking about a Shasat Chak. That's why I said it's only not like a Tchila. Avada not like a Tchila. Shasat Chak. If that finally said, you have to be Seimecha. Okay, yeah. If you don't warm it up for a night, we don't warm it up for a night. I'm just trying to show that there is, there's a Shasat Chak, you have what to be Samech Lak. The Maisa, the Lavush, the Primagardim, Shechanach HaRav, the Mishabura, the Gleital, the Shabbos, V'chulu, V'chulu, V'chulu. Don't go with this hat if it's not no blech. So that was a chiddush. Again, what? The guy to come here, we said Chumash also, Rav Eshel. But this is only live. I don't know if they're hearing this online. Yeah. So, yeah, Akaponim, we'll stop here. And next week we'll continue on with what CHAZARA is. But again, let's just make a quick sikkum. CHAZARA is a lot worse than Shia. But we have to know when CHAZARA is talking about. From Friday to Shabbos, everything is a problem with CHAZARA. You'll need all the Tanai CHAZARA. Shabbos itself, people do not know this. They think it's a favar from the Ran. It's a Ramah. And it's a Ramah and Aruch HaShulchan. Now we have to know that you won't use this like a tchila. Don't tell your wife to start doing this minig. It's not kedai. You're gonna start doing this. You might start putting on a double lach and start cooking things on Shabbos. Stay away from it. But Akapanim realize that there is a makom definitely b'shas atchak to be mekel and aschola. Realize the chashivas. You're holding up the world. Whoever was zeichet to be there Sunday night, you saw what it meant. Learn the Torah, and you're part of the same learn the Torah. You were sitting all the way on top.
Make a special section.
The comment from the floor was that the Balabachim were sitting at the top, and the real princes, we're talking about the beautiful events in Philadelphia.
I think that everyone over here should have been the real princes.
Not even people in the days, right?
Right.
They
I think,
tried to-
yes, I think that everyone over here should have been on that ground floor. I'm sitting and learning fakat more Messias never than anyone else.
Next year.
You can't.
Amir
Amir Hashem, believe that. Okay.
Sit together with this.
We'll give you back seats, Amir Hashem.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
And we'll, Tuesday, we can be tomorrow, 11 o'clock.